With a strong cast and $80 million budget and the director of Speed and Twister at the helm, this movie could not possibly fail. Yeah, about that. I'm John Renton with the retro review of The Haunting, a remake of The Haunting from 1999, a remake of the 1963 classic, and oh boy, do I have thoughts some 20 plus years after this movie came out. It's infamous for having opened up at the box office at number 1 with $33.4 million and ended up with a grand total of $91.4 million. It didn't even crack $100 million because word got out that this movie was kinda absolutely motherfucking shit and aggressively boring and sleep-inducing, and oh boy, this was bad, Jan de Bont. I hope I'm pronouncing that right because, yes, he did direct Speed and Twister. He also directed Speed 2, Cruise Control Boogaloo, which was less than good. This was bad, Jan de Bont. He hasn't really directed all that much since then, and I can't really fucking blame Hollywood for not giving him much of a chance because, sweet Jesus, either he decided to retire or they just said, hey, we're just going to give you bad scripts because this movie failed and it's all on you. It's probably more on the studio for the fact that they advertised this as something really, really scary, and it wasn't. The special effects for 1999 looked like shit. There are movies that came out in 95, 94 that had special effects that hold up better than this, and it's actually astonishing for $80 million. This is the best they could fucking do. So anyway, the writer was David Self, and man, he did some self-reflecting here and decided that he was just going to phone it the fuck in. He wrote 13 Days, Road to Perdition, which was actually pretty good, and The Wolfman 2010 movie. So, okay, we were kind of fucked here because this is more of The Wolfman than it was Road to Perdition. This cast included Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones doing one of the worst American accents I've ever fucking heard. It was like Rosamund Pike in Doom, except somehow worse. And Catherine Zeta-Jones, very good actress, fucking gorgeous, absolutely fucking gorgeous. And she was on the rise at this point. You also had Owen Wilson playing a guy named Luke. If you can't kind of get the symbolism there, I don't really know what to say. And there was Nell, played by Lily Taylor, who would end up turning in a great performance in The Conjuring. I own all the Conjuring movies, the Conjuring Universe, a spinoff, and all that stuff. And even the worst Conjuring Universe movie was better than this. That's saying something because the 2014 Annabelle movie was kind of really fucking shit. Also, Bruce Dern, Marion Seldes, and Virginia Madsen had a brief cameo in this. Virginia Madsen. At this point, I would, and you would too. She looked great in Candyman, looked great here, and looks great now, and I think she's either approaching or just over 60. So yeah, the 1963 classic obviously has its issues because you're going to have that with any movie that's that goddamn old. There's going to be the technological advances, you know, after so many goddamn years. Even the Hitchcock movies, sometimes you're like, oh, why the hell would you do this? But it was a different time, a different era, and the 1963 version had life and energy and enthusiasm and atmosphere, and this just had a big old house with a whole bunch of crazy imagery and spoopy imagery, and it was so over the top with the scary stuff and the wood carvings and the giant gargoyle. This house was built for giant beasts that were in Dark Souls. Look at how big this house is. This giant castle, it's insane. Like, how would anybody have built this like this? How could anybody have, you know, made this mansion this way? It's just astonishing. Even when you find out the plot, and if you've never, or the big plot reveal in the third act, if you've never seen a movie, you would still be able to figure this out and see the twist coming a mile a goddamn way. And since it's a retro review, I'm going to spoil that pretty goddamn soon. So, it starts out with bad family drama because Lily Taylor's character, Nell, is getting kicked out of the apartment after taking care of her mother for so many goddamn years because her sister, played by Virginia Madsen's kind of a bitch. We'll let the courts decide. Hey, here's mom's car. We're just going to give it to you. It's a 20-year-old car. A car that really looks, it would have been beat up even back when it was new. Then we cut to Dr. Morrow. Or Marrow, I mean, however you want to say it, Dr. Mark Marrow. That would have been honestly interesting if we got Johnny B. Bad and not Marvelous Mark Marrow. Tell me Johnny B. Bad, all my wrestling friends out there, tell me that Johnny B. Bad being a doctor wouldn't have been good. Just a bad blaster right in the face. You're cured! Wild! Anyway, okay, let's get back to this. Liam Neeson plays Dr. Marrow, and I realize his Irish accent gets even more and more pronounced when he gets even a little bit excited. But this is before he was putting out his particular set of skills, and he was taken to the extreme. And he wants to do a sleep study, which actually is going to turn into a study on fear. He wants to study how fear can, warp the mind. And if people really are just, what they can see when they're absolutely totally scared shitless. Okay, not a bad premise. This also came out the same year as the House on Haunted Hill 1999 remake, which, well, that was by no means perfect, and in fact, I would argue was absolutely a dog shit movie. It was entertaining and had a different twist about it. They made it more violent, they made it more ridiculous, and they just amplified it and everything. It was from Dark Castle Entertainment. This is from DreamWorks. DreamWorks at this point was a studio that was doing some good stuff. I think they just started a little bit earlier in the decade. And there was a chance to make this good, and what they just did is they took this cast that was pretty close to A-list at the time, I would argue, or at least, B-level. So a good cast, especially a good, core amount of people. I mean, Bruce Dern, terrific actor, and all the people I listed before. There was a chance to make this work, and it was a slog. This was almost sleep-inducing. And when he started to get more angry, oh no, he's neesing it up. And then he started to, he started to get exposed as somebody that maybe wasn't the best person. Why do you need so many chains? Oh, that's a good question, Bruce Dern says, to keep people out or whatever. Maybe people feel safer when they have more chains on their gates. So, the house is large, open-ended, and my God, it's so freaking ridiculous, the amount of crazy over-the-top music that they use. It's like it's just a scare, the jump scare music that they use. And the fact that this house, nobody in their right mind or even in a halfway coherent mind would stay in this house. It's obviously haunted, obviously ridiculous, but it's so obviously dark and spoopy and, haunted that it's almost going in the opposite direction, almost goes back in on itself and becomes comical. Like, you're like, this house is so over the top, there's no way it could actually be scary because it's so lavishly ridiculous. The Dudleys are the caretakers, and there we go. And Mrs. Dudley, played by Marion, was like, I serve breakfast at 9, I serve dinner at 6. We don't, stay in town because we don't stay here after it's dark. Why? You'll find out why. And then it becomes obvious that Nell has some attachment to this house because earlier she had seen this ad about trouble sleeping and called the doctor about it and had gotten on this sleep study. And we find out a little bit later that, well, maybe there was something going on there, almost like we were doing the same thing from House on Haunted Hill. But this came out earlier than House on Haunted Hill. So House on Haunted Hill, again, actually has some life and energy to it. Catherine's American accent was just not good. It was not good at all. She was trying to throw out a bunch of buzzwords. And look, it's hard to do an accent that is not your native language. Fuck, it's hard for me to speak goddamn English for anybody that's been watching my channel. But still, when you should have given her actual accent and stuff like that because it wasn't good. It just wasn't. I couldn't get over it. She, Nell talks about how she sees this giant door and everything and all these children and all this stuff, and it looks like they're clawing all these skeletons, and it's purgatory. I studied purgatory. I lived in it for 11 years, taking care of her mother. And the house has a giant carousel. It also has a water path with books on and everything, and boxes straight out of Amnesia, The Dark Descent. And here's Luke, played by Owen, he was not Cool Hand Luke in this. And they talk about their problems sleeping, various people as to why they can't sleep. And I do have my trusty cellular telephone in case of emergencies. 1999, I fucking hate you for making me feel old. I was 18 when that movie came out. And so, Morrow tells the story of, Henry Crane and how he wanted a house filled with laughter and children. And then, oh no, wait, maybe there's a little bit more to the story. That's why there's all the children stuff around there. And why the house is obviously fucking haunted and dark and everything. Because it was such a lively place. So, the children all died at birth. Or did they? And the wife ended up accidentally offing her, or, she ended up offing herself out of sadness. Or did he kill her? I wonder what really happened with this clearly haunted house. And they basically had to do something to get a couple characters out, like the assistant Mary, who's this very, very, very lovely redhead, by the way. She was looking at this piano wire and everything and talking about all this stuff, and then suddenly the piano wire got her in the eye, and they had to put a cup over her eye so it didn't do this, so they just had to do this and put the eye out and everything, and the piano was just like, I'm writing this character out of the movie. The piano had more personality than anybody else, and also got them out, so they got out before the gates were locked, but it was dark. So why weren't the gates locked? They said they didn't stay after dark. Who locked the gates? Logic holes already. And who's really causing all this? Obviously, Henry Crane is the one causing this goddamn thing. You know why Crane is causing this? You know why Crane is causing this? Because it turns out that, oh yeah, he was kind of a goddamn dick that was an evil person. He was an evil son of a bitch. Is it all in their heads? No, it's not all in their heads. They're not happy. They're feeling sad. They got sunshine in a bag. They're not useless, but not for long. The future is ghostly wrong. Boy, that was a terrible rendition of that, Gorilla song I just came up with. Gorillas with a Z, because you know it's cool. So, the special effects, goddamn shit. There are the children saying, find us, Eleanor, because, Eleanor, haha. Boy, I missed the opportunity to say that. She is trying to figure out why the children are asking her to find them. Welcome home, Eleanor. It's painted all on this, this giant painting, this giant, by this giant staircase. It was made for people 20 fucking feet tall. Why does a house need to be that big? And then she basically decides, hey, you know what? I could be a victim or I could be a volunteer. I'm going to be a volunteer. I'm going to be a volunteer. I volunteer as tribute. So yeah, of course, Dr. Morrow's in on it. It's him lying to people and basically trying to figure out this study in fear. So, at one point, Eleanor, she's brushing her hair and everything, and the ghosts decide to braid her hair because these damn ghostly hairstylists, oh, honey, you're absolutely going to love it. The spectral energy, don't worry about it. And she finds stuff in Crane's study about all these children's names scratched out. Why are these children's names scratched out? Did she have that many kids? Oh, no. He made his riches by, building the house and everything off the labor of the children, from these textile mills that he had in these various businesses. And, well, basically what ends up happening is she digs through this fireplace and finds all these bones and says, I'm going to save you. I'm going to absolutely save you. I'm going to find you. She finds the second wife there, Carolyn. Her bones are in there. Normally, if, you're a normal person or whatever that just wants to build a lavish house and everything and you just have unlucky, relationships, you don't bury your wife's bones or her body rather, in the fireplace. Also, there's this giant lion head that's in the goddamn fireplace that comes back into play a little bit later. This chimney clock dong, as I call it. And boy, there was a stupid hand in the door and everything. The Frighteners came out 3 years before this, had a significantly smaller budget, and looked better than this. I'm going to retro review the Frighteners at some point too, but yeah, this hand goes through. It goes through like this. Anyway, let's get back to this. So, he filled the house with the laughter of children. No, he didn't, from the mills. Because he actually filled it with, he filled it with the children that he stole from the parents. Because his wife could not give birth to children, and he wanted to basically harness their energy and kill them. Why? Who the hell knows? 80% of this movie is just Eleanor talking to ghostly children by this point. The library books are on the water for no goddamn reason. I don't understand why any of this set happened. Why was the carousel there? What was going on in this movie? Why did they just revisit? 13 Ghosts made more sense than this. And then there was the one point that was in the trailer where Liam Neeson is giving the speech and everything and saying, oh, I made this mistake and everything. And then this hand comes out and God and just grabs him and pulls him under, pulls him into the water and everything and starts spewing blood because, as the goddamn statues are known to do, because man, that's a spa treatment right there if I've ever seen one. And then, well, yeah, we end up getting Owen Wilson's character dying because the chimney dong takes his goddamn head off. Instead of facing this way like it does, it turns and says, because it's a lion, and chops his head off. I mean, in all honesty, Owen Wilson dying in the movie isn't the worst thing in the world. We don't have to hear, wow, I got my head bit off, wow. And then the ghost keeps calling Eleanor, keeps calling her Eleanor, and keeps calling her, call to me, call to me. And they This keeps happening. We get these windows that bust open or whatever, and then they reform. They're trying to break out of the house because they can't get out. And then the chairs just get attached to the window and everything. So they instinctively try to grab the metal parts there, ignoring the fact they're going to cut their hands on glass because Dr. Merrill's such a smart individual. And then, of course, Owen Wilson gets his head taken off there. And they're going to play hide and seek because suddenly they finally have enough left in special effects budget to just blow it all by having Crane come down, not on a crane, but from the ceiling, a ceiling crane, if you will, and come down and just do this and just do all that. And he wants to play hide and seek with them because he played hide and seek with the children when he was going to kill them. Okay, whatever. It was also kind of funny they were going to burn the house down and Owen Wilson got his head taken off. And then she decides, hey, I'm just going to bring him to this door, the purgatory door from earlier. He's been in this house this whole goddamn time, and he never got to the door where these ghosts could have got to him. Gets there, and he knocks out, Theo and Dr. Merrill. So Catherine Zeta-Jones and Liam Neeson are knocked out. And she says, it's like purgatory's over, go to hell. And she gets taken into the door, he gets pulled into the door, and she dies. And then the children assume into heaven, and she gets assumed into heaven and everything. And Catherine Zeta-Jones and Liam Neeson are the only ones left. Did you find what you were looking for, Doctor? No, he still hasn't found what he's looking for. What I'm looking for is a better version of this movie. This movie was ass. It was really goddamn bad. No wonder it made like a third, it made just over a third of its, box office receipts in the U.S. in its first week. It made like 177 something million worldwide. So it obviously, even with the advertising budget, made its money back. But it was not the runaway success they thought. I mean, the first week was basically pretty much a fifth of what this movie made worldwide. That just shows the significant drop-off it had, and it wasted the talents of various people. Once again, Catherine Zeta-Jones' American accent was terrible. So yeah, pretty shitty movie. Look for more retro reviews coming up this month and in future months, because why not? There's not a lot of movies that are really coming out in 2022 that I have much interest in, except some on streaming that I'll get to. So yeah, more movies coming up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ricklin. I'll see you soon.